This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Shalom Aleichem. Sorry for the delay, but to learn the ICIs, it's very much kedai to be able to see it inside. So I think we should be able to have it up now. Here we go. Today we're gonna do Ois Kuf, Reish, and Shin. Okay. Yesterday we saw that the final tzadi is a nun, pshuta, final nun, with a yud. We asked, why isn't it a vav? And Mendy made the point that maybe it's considered a yud, not a vav, because it actually has a thorn on top, a kutzai shel yud. That point actually may be helpful for today as well. Ois kof. Says the Mishna Sofrim, Yeh gaga shava. Gaga shava means it's a flat roof. V'tag katan tzarich lios al gaga b'tzad small. It has a small crown on the left side, al paneha, on its face, l'chadchila. V'yasa hakoitz dak. You should make the thorn thin. Kedei shelo yikalkel bazeh timunas hakuf. So that you do not ruin the image of the kuf. Meaning it should be a very fine tag, because if you make the tag too big, then it's going to end up looking like a lamed, like in this diagram. On one side, it's going to look like a lamed. Now, for this very reason, look carefully, the tag of the kuf should be not on the corner of the kuf, but rather a little bit off to the side. This way, it's clear it's not a lamed. Ya'atik hatag miktsei hagag. You should move the crown off the edge of the roof. Ayin sham. V'yurecha hayamanis. The right leg of the kuf should be tzarchlius lamata kuf of heitev letzad regel small. Should be bent well to the left side. Kamay Tzuras kuf, like the image of a chaf kufufa. So the right side of the bottom of the kuf should be bent like a chaf, like in diagram 3. However, it should be much more narrow than the roof. It should be much more narrow than the roof. Now we're going to see, Be'ezus Hashem, maybe we'll read the Be'er Halacha, where there is an opinion of the Radvaz, that the kuf, instead of looking bent like a chaf, it should be like a resh, like we're going to have in this diagram, 14. We'll see about that. The regel, okay, now the left leg, regel asmos tfui above, Tzuras nun pshuta. Basically, the left leg is an endanun, but a bit shorter. It's not a zayin, it's taller than a zayin. A zayin is 2 komasim. This is 2.5, but it's not like a nun, which is maybe 3. Okay, so the zayin is 2, the zayin in the kuf is 2.5, about, and the nun is like 3. Achshik tsar ma'ad, it's a little bit shorter than the final nun. Therefore, its head should be thick, umismayid v'hoilech, and diminish as it goes, kamay benun, like the letter nun. You should not distance the chachila from the roof more than the thickness of the roof. So let's say in diagram 6, the roof is a komos wide. This final nun in the kuf, it's more than a komos away from the roof. It's not correct. L'chadchila should be not more than oivei hagag. V'yesh l'chadchila limshoich regel smoil hatluya ba'alaksan k'tzas l'tzad yamin. L'chadchila, the final nun inside the kuf should be slightly slanted toward the right side. So that's another difference between this and the final nun. The final nun stands straight. This is slightly inclined to the right. You have to be very careful that the regel doesn't touch the roof, and or the right leg. It should not be too close to the roof. There should be between it and the roof enough empty space so that a regular Baal Koreh standing at a regular distance can clearly see that the leg is not touching. Like we said by the hay, that it should not be by the middle of the gag, like in diagram 10 over here, where my icon is, but rather ela b'soife b'tzad small, rather on the edge on the left side. V'imnaga haregel b'gagoy, if the leg touched the roof, v'adim b'reich, or the leg shabetzidai, oy she'asa regel b'emtza hagag, hakol dinoi k'may b'ois hay. It has the same din as the ois hay. Basically, if it's touching the leg or the roof, puzzle. If it's not opposite the middle, then you could start scraping the edge of the top of the kuf to make it equal to the hey chamavur sham le'el ba'ois hey. Now, this is another rule. In terms of length, we always have this Pri Megadim. Everyone remember the Pri Megadim? This is one Pri Megadim. If I wake you up in your sleep, you need to know that if the length of something is a yud length below where it needs to be, it's good enough. That's the Chiddush of Pri Megadim. Even though we say this Zion should be, let's say, 2.5 kulmasim. And you look in the Zion, it's only 1.5. Yeah, but it's a yud below the edge of the bent over part of the right side of the chaf. Vim oirech haregel hasmali, if the left leg is long, hu rakimo yud, is just about a yud, be keneged makam hakfifa, from beyond the place where the opposite leg on the right side is bent over, ulamater kosher b'di'ever, meaning the minimum shear of the length of something, it's got to extend a yud below where it needs to be. So this final nun is a yud below the right leg that it is parallel to, it's good enough. Kain nearly kavanas pri megadim and mashakasav l'inyan kuf the devar masla kamla nika regel ahei v'chulu kuf reish v'chulu mashasim and nisham yach hayamin mishum achrini nakat, that he said for a different reason. Ois reish. Okay, we're almost at the finish line. Reish. Ois reish gago shav l'chadchila. Ois reish, its roof is the chadchila straight. Oidi is arshati agulu mamash me'achara. But it needs to be rounded on top right. Why? So that's not similar to a dalet. Vim nireis kedalet psula. If it looks like a dalet, it will be pasal. Vim safek, if you're masupik maran latinoik, you show it to a kid. If he says dalet pasal, he says reish kasher. The yurecha yakotzer kadesh l'tam l'kaf. The leg should be short, so it's not like an endechaf. What do I mean short? 2 kolmasim as opposed to an endechaf. That it's, let's say an endechaf is like 4 kolmasim, but if you make this 3, you get yourself in trouble. The gaga arach ka'arach beis. The roof should be wide like a beis, 3 kolmasim wide. Kadesho tedam lavav, because otherwise it's going to look like a vav. Uvediavad im yesh safek maran latinik. If you're not sure, does it look like a resh? Does it look like a vav? Show it to a kid. B'chanav. Also regular resh katzer kama yud. Oh, what if you made the leg of the resh very short, like a yud? Kasher. Back to the Pri Megadim. It's kasher. You know why? Because it doesn't look like any other letter. Don't say, oh, but maybe it doesn't look like any other letter. Elamai, it doesn't meet the halachic requirements. Whenever it has a yud, it meets the halachic requirements. I know it's late. Could you bear with me? Could we do the Shin? Because let's do the Shin. Otherwise, tomorrow is going to be a very long day. I'm sorry we started late. Let's do the Shin. Also, I mentioned that we might have to use what Mendy said yesterday. So let's bring it in here. Shin. Yeshlat Shalosh Russian. It has 3 heads. The interesting thing here is the 3 heads are as follows: Vav, Yud, Zayin. That's all you need to know. It has 3 heads. Head number 1, this is a Vav. Head number 2 is a Yud. Head number 3 is a Zayin. So you say, what do you mean? 1 and 2, they both look like Vavs. No. Head 1 is a Vav because it doesn't have kites. Head 2 is a Yud because it has a kites. It's not the length that determines the Tzura, it's the kites. So I think that substantiates, Mendy, what you said yesterday, that in other words, when we say there's a vav coming out of the final nun to produce a final tzadi, it's not the length of it, it's the fact that it has a, it's not, when we say there's a yud coming out of the final nun, it's not the length of it, it might be longer than a yud, but it has a kites. Okay, so the 3 heads. Roisha harishain im yarech hanimshach imenu ke'en vav. The first head with the leg coming out of it is like a vav. Ufanea klape mala, it's facing upward, ktsas. V'haroish hasheni yeh ke'en yud. The second head, look at my icon on page 9, on image 9, is like yud. It's facing upward. Upanea gamken ktsas klape mala. It's also facing upward. V'uketz katan aleh l'charchila. L'charchila should have an uketz katan. So I'm not 100% sure, because why are we saying this is a vav and this is a yud? It seems to me because the first head doesn't have a koitz. The second one does. The only thing is, why does he say lechatchila? I guess only lechatchila it should be like a yud.
There's no codes underneath either.
What?
There's no codes underneath.
No kites underneath, only on top. But let's go, going back to the final tzadi for a moment. When we say, it's murkav from a yud and a nun, right? Looking on diagram 2, it's not really a yud and a nun. He says, look, yud, nun, but when he puts it together, there's only a kites on the top. There is no kites on the bottom. So, okay. The haroish hashlish yitzarch la'asas ketuna zayin. The third head should be a zayin. Okay. Where's the third head? In diagram 10. It's interesting. It's not mamish like a zayin, because the zayin, we say it narrow on top, widens and narrow. It doesn't look like we do that to the third head.
No, but the stem is coming off the center as opposed to the vav.
The stem is coming. What do you mean the center? You mean a straight line of the shin?
No, the zayin versus the vav.
Right.
From the top square, the stem is coming down the center. The vav, it comes down the right side.
Usher's making a good point, right? The difference between the vav, which the stem comes out of the right side, and the zayin, where it comes out of the center, so the head is coming out mikano lekan. I'm pointing out, if you look at a zayin, the zayin widens in the middle and narrows on the bottom. It doesn't seem like we do that with the shin. I'm not sure why. Mendy, write down that question also. Okay, so maybe we'll have to bring the experts back, but it doesn't seem like we do that. Fine. The gimel tagin alav. And there are 3 tagin on it. Why? V'chein kolosia shatnas gates, roisham hasmali hu kazayin. All the letters, shin, ayin, tes, nun, zayin, the left head is like a zayin. I'm just curious, when we learned ayin, and the ayin, the left leg, was it a zayin the same way? Nun, samach. Yeah, let's say when we learned the letter ayin, also the left leg was a zayin, but it didn't widen like that in the middle. It just was a straight line. Perhaps that's just like a hiddur. Going back to the letter zayin,
it could be a practical thing that it's too tight. There's not enough space there to make it wider. You're looking at the tzav of a shin.
On page 282, when we're talking about the Ois Zayin, diagram 19, it's V'yesha Oisin HaKav HaTachton Dak B'yitzia B'ol Chamasav HaChetzi Mechetzi Chazim Zad Ad Chad L'mata. It's not even it's brought as a chachila, it's not even a hiddur, it's some do it. Okay, so they do it by the zayin. It doesn't seem like it's done when you're the left head of the shatnas gates. V'yizar shelo yigu harashim zu b'zu. You have to be careful the heads don't touch each other. Haroish hasmali hazayi chachila yirechai mamish ba'amida. The left head, its legs should be mamish standing. Let's see, like over here in diagram 12. Okay, diagram 12. Its left leg is straight. Fine. V'yamshich elav hayarech min harosh harishain b'shipua lamata ad makom chudai, and you should draw the leg from the first resh on an angle below until its point, like this. So the right leg is going on an angle until its point. You see how this vav on the right side is going down, 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 down until its point. V'yarech harosh hasheni, the leg of the second head, gam ken yamshich b'shipul l'tzad small lamata ad shia hashloisha roshim mechubar lamata b'makam echad. The middle leg is also going on an angle, right? The left leg is straight like a soldier. The two right legs are going on an angle so that all three legs basically come down to one point. Honestly, reading the Mishna Berura, I don't think it's drawn the way the Mishna Berura says it. Because, the Mishna Berura seems to say that all three legs come down to one point. I don't think this is drawn as one point. This is a pretty big blotch on the bottom to be considered one point. I think the Mishna Berura means that, let's say the Zayin goes straight down, and the Vav and the Yud next to it both come mamish to a point. I don't think the Mishna Berura is saying the way this picture is drawn. You hear what I'm saying? That's not what is called Makom Echad. I think, here, I'm going to draw for you what I think the Mishna Berura is saying. Here. No, you can't see. Now you can see where it's coming mamish down to one point. That's one point. Not here. He has this big triangle on the bottom. Where did that big triangle come from? Okay, maybe we'll ask him that. Write down that question also. Where did the big triangle come from? Rabbi Yeager's going to check his books. I bet some of the books don't have it this way. Okay. V'im hayud ha'emtsoi lo'noga b'shuleha. If the middle yud is not touching the hem, mavur dinoi b'lamed beis siv chav hei ayin sham. V'lo yeh moishav hashin rachav. The base of the shin should not be wide, like in 15a aleph. V'lo agol, and not rounded like in 15 bays. Elachad. Then all 3 points are standing on one leg. I think my picture is more accurate to what the Mishna Berura is saying, actually. Otherwise, according to the way he's drawing it, would you say all 3 heads are on one leg? No, I wouldn't say that. They're all standing on the top of a triangle, and then the triangle goes down and is on one leg. I think this needs to be in total more pointed. Maybe the Sofrim don't do it that way. Maybe there's a different reason. Maybe it's too hard, but I don't think that's what the Mishna Berura is saying. Fine.
In the picture of the ksav, in the picture of the actual ksav that he brings earlier, it doesn't seem to. There's no giant triangle. It seems that it's a tight spot, so there ends up being a lot of ink there. But it's more or less they're all coming to the point.
Like where?
Page 260, page 265. He has an image of Phil Shalyad, the ksav there. I mean, it's printed, so it's not exactly a cipher wrote it, but I
hear.
The shin looks more or less pointed. It's not
a little bit better than here, yeah. But like in picture, I mean, in all these shins, there's a lot going on down there,
Right.
What would be in it? In other words, what's this rounded? Where did this rounded thing come here from? Between head 1 and head 2, where did this rounded part? Where did that come from? Who made that? Who made that up? That's not what the Mishna Berura says. Okay, weiter. I'm sorry it's late. If you gotta go, you gotta go. I want to finish the shin. Let's finish the shin. Then. Like the word sheker, right, has only one base, and the shin is on one point, the kuf is on one point, the resh is on one point. Almost seems to me, by the way, the zayin is here, the Vav is the Yud, is coming out of the Zayin, but the Vav's not coming out of the Zayin unless you make this whole contraption on the bottom. Okay. Uv'di'evedim asa moishav hashin rachav. If b'di'eved you made the base of the shin wide, nishar prima gadam etzarchiyan. The prima gadam ends off in a tzarchiyan. Im kasav shin shel daled roshim. If you make a shin with 4 heads psula, v'loy dai begreres roshach. It's not going to help to scrape off 1 head. Dahavichak tuchais el tzarch levatel ha'ois. You have to be mevatel the ois hashlima and be mashami. So here the Mishna was smart. He knew we were going to be jumping on this. How much exactly do you have to rub out? Do you have to rub out the whole thing, or could you leave Nekuda Ktana? Doesn't get involved. Uvetuna mezuzos and kasav la'achareha. Tuna mezuzos, if you're gonna if you wrote after it in moyel tikun the havish lo kasidron prichadash b'am ezer be. What does be aleph ayin stand for here? You have the dirshu. Uve prima gadam be psichol adaveremes v'shar achronim deloy kahamariksh hamarikash im yesh hefsek be'ezem eroshim. If the heads are not connected, before dino lel b'lamed beis of chafei im nagoy ezem eroshim yosem makam dibukan. Okay, important. Let's say you have like 17 where you're not makir the head; it's one thick line. Then we say Dahainu she'nikar harosh ela kav shava puzzle. The ainti nikmo, but that's not going to help to bring in a kid. Nagoy harosh and zabazafil kharasar puzzle. The 2 heads are touching; it's going to be puzzle. Ula inyan tikun regarding fixing ayin b'sefer Mishnas Avram Shekasav deroiv haposkim some the mahanim is a greira. If the heads are touching, you could scrape. Why? The loy, that's not chak tuchais. The loy mikri nishtanas Tzuras that. That's not called changing the image. It's puzzle, so you're machshir it. V'rak hachisarnu mishum the ina mukov gevil. The heads are touching. The chsarn is that it's not surrounded by parchment. Al yedeze. If the heads are touching, it's not surrounded by parchment. L'kach mahani greira. Therefore, greira helps achakach. However, Velinera says Mishna Berura, in my opinion, since there are many poskim that are machmer, you're not makel only by tuna mezuzos and kasav acharav. By tuna mezuzos, if you wrote after it, so you won't be able to erase it, so we'll let you scrape it. Because the loy mahani b'hu shloi kasidron. By tuna mezuzos, shloi kasidron won't help. Mashen came b'sefer Torah. By Sefer Torah, you'll have to mevatel it from the tzura of the ois and be mashlim it afterwards. Okay, Rabbi Isai, we'll hold over here. Tomorrow we finish up the letter Taf. Kol tov, everyone. Thanks for hanging in there. Kol tov.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.